The 8BitDo Pro 3 is 8BitDo's next generation controller. It's shaped like an SNES controller with some handles on it, and honestly, being a huge Super Nintendo fan, it's pretty awesome. But how does it stack up against the competition, and how does it stack up against 8BitDo's own offerings? Like, for example, 8BitDo's previous generation Pro 2. But if you like this video or any other video I've made, please like, subscribe, and share with all of your friends. And in the meantime, why don't you check out Off the Console? It's a brand new podcast created by me, Gardner Bryant, and Games Revealed, with guest stars occasionally. Check it out. Acne's asked if I wanted to check out this 8BitDo Pro 3, and I was like, yeah, of course. And so I'm checking out this controller, no money is exchanged hands, and I'm giving you my full, honest opinion. Inside this box here comes the controller, a USB Type-C cable, some replacement joysticks in case you ever need them, replacement face buttons, and the charging dock, which yes includes a built-in version of 8BitDo's 2.4 GHz dongle. The controller layout is fairly similar to your average controller, but of course the sticks are side by side, much like a PlayStation controller. And for a controller like this, the D-pad is the star of the show here, but the sticks are no slouches. In fact, they're quite good. See, these are TMR based sticks, which gives you all the benefits of Hall effect, but they take up less battery, so you can use them for even longer. One point of contention I see for some potential buyers is the stick placement. They're side by side instead of offset, much like an Xbox controller. But then again, the PlayStation's more popular anyway, so I think players are fine with side by side sticks. The sticks are pretty good. They're not the best feeling sticks I've ever used on a controller, but they certainly get the job done, and yes, we have enough controls on this controller to play just about every modern game that supports controller. But in my opinion, the real star of the show here are the D-pad and face buttons. The D-pad is quite clicky, it makes a satisfying click sound, and honestly, I do like this D-pad for games like platformers and other 2D games. The buttons make a very audible sound when you press them, but they're not like clicky buttons though, they still kind of feel mushy like your standard controller button is. But of course, one of the new hallmark features of the Pro 3 is the ability to swap out the buttons physically. And yes, they include the tool and some additional buttons in the box. It's a cool tool for customization, and there are some practical use cases in case you get your Nintendo and Xbox buttons all mixed up. You could swap around all the legends, and if you're familiar with a more Xbox layout, it'll say, A at the bottom, B on the right, X on the left, and Y on the top, instead of, the Nintendo layout. Now, personally, I don't have this issue myself. I'm not entirely sure why people get the Xbox and Nintendo layouts confused, but it doesn't happen to me. They're magnetic, so they're pretty easy to swap. This feature is pretty cool on paper, but its viability and just how cool it is really depends on, parts availabilities in case one of your buttons gets messed up, or perhaps the ability for users to create their own custom buttons. Wouldn't it be cool if someone could create their own custom buttons that are compatible with the 8BitDo Pro 3 and you could just stick them on yourself? Like, imagine if someone made some PlayStation style buttons and stuck them on here. That would be pretty cool. But there's no telling if this will happen or if 8BitDo will release some CAD files for creators to mess around with. That said, the D-pad itself isn't really all that modular, and to be honest, there are some games I wouldn't want to play with the D-pad. For example, fighting games. Now this might sound like someone that's just an arcade stick snob, but let me tell you, good D-pads for fighting games do have a strong central pivot, and this controller does not have that. Anything more complicated than a half circle motion, a single half circle motion at that, is going to give you a hard time in my opinion. The pivot really does help with executing moves in fighting games. Channeling my inner retro game core, yes, the controller is Hadokenable and Shoryukenable, but I'm a grappler main and I'm having a tough time landing my 360s. A strong central pivot would make this a lot better for fighting games, but I'm not too upset. I mean, I have a pretty decent fight stick. But things get a lot more interesting when we look at the top, where the bumpers and triggers live. You've got your bumpers and triggers. The bumpers have a nice solid click, albeit the noise is kind of muted, but it's still very solid and feels great to press. The triggers have a nice range of motion when you have full analog. But of course, if you're playing FPSs or basically anything that's not a racing game, you can change it to a hair trigger and it works great. I like the clicky sound of it when it, is a hair trigger. Some of you may be wondering why this even has analog controls, given that it's a Switch 2 controller, and the answer is it's not just a Switch 2 controller. You can also use it on PC as well, and yes, full analog works on PC. But what is interesting is this additional macro button right beside the bumpers. See, I espouse the benefits of having a macro button near your shoulders and bumpers. Because, let's be honest, having two sets of macros on the back of the controller, it's nice, but another button around where the bumpers would be, that's a lot more intuitive. You've got two buttons in the top and two buttons in the back of the controller. And of course, I think this is the part where we talk about the software features of the controller. See, the macro buttons can be assigned by themselves. Like, you can just use the controller by itself to figure out macros. And that's probably the only way you would get macros working on the Switch too. But on PC and the Steam Deck, you have additional options. You can use 8BitDo's own software, and it works okay, I guess. You could also use their Android app, but I'm not gonna bother with that, because probably the best way to use this controller and to make changes to the macros and whatnot is to just pair it up to Steam. Yes, that's right, Steam officially supports some 8BitDo controllers now, and this happens to be one of them coming out of the box. And while yes, you can use Steam Input to basically define any other controller, this controller being its own controller type means that Steam Input also has access to its macro buttons, and they can be set to different discrete commands instead of just mirroring a button that's already on the controller. To actually use this functionality on Steam Deck or like your PC, you want to set it to D for D input, and then Steam will just automatically recognize it. Oh, and I forgot to mention, yes, this controller also has gyro as well. Prior controllers from other companies, or even 8BitDo's own offerings, had controllers registered as a Switch controller, which means yes, you have access to gyro in those controllers, but not gyro and analog triggers at the same time. But this has changed with the Pro 3 and also some of their older controllers getting firmware updates to support Steam. So this is quite literally a game changer. The only real issue I have with this integration is that the dongle that it comes with doesn't let you use Steam Input the way you would expect it to. Having it set to dongle mode just has it registers as an Xbox controller, which is okay for like regular usage, but the controller in my experience does perform better with the dongle. I'm not sure if there's anything 8BitDo or Valve can do at this moment, but I would like to use a controller with the dongle because, well, it performs better. All in all, it's the perfect controller for someone like me. I like to play a lot of older style games, or even just 2D games. Basically anything that's not a fighting game is pretty okay in my book. I also do quite like the colorway that I was sent. It's a GameCube inspired look and it looks great. Like I said, the only real issues I have is that the D-pad isn't really that great for fighting, and also the inability to use Steam Input while using the dongle. You have to use the controller in Bluetooth mode, which is not preferable for some people because some people have really crappy Bluetooth adapters in their computers. I know I do, but I think it's time we talk about the elephant in the room, the price. It's a $70 controller in the US, which is almost $15 more than the Pro 2. Now, I have no real qualms with paying for a good controller, and I certainly think this is worth the $70. But I can see it being an issue for someone that wants to buy a cheaper controller. Thankfully, 8BitDo's older controllers are going on sale, and they're very good controllers still, which does make the Pro 3 a harder sell for some people. But honestly, this is probably the most balanced controller one can buy if you're playing on PC or the Switch 2. And yes, moving forward, this will become my main controller for most of my games I play. If you like this video, please press the like button and check out our other videos, and if you like those other videos as well, be sure to press the subscribe button and share the good gospel of high-tech lowlife with your friends. Furthermore, we have a community Discord for enlightened individuals such as you. And if you wish to further support high-tech lowlife, be sure to check out our Patreon page, links in the description.